Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 11. Then he, the Lord power, said unto me, Son of man, these bones are the whole house of Yisrael. Behold, they say, Our bones are dried, and our hope is lost. We are cut off for our parts.
It's almost detective work here at the University of Göttingen as Holger Stucker and his team sift through old clues. Over 1,000 skulls and many bones inside scores of boxes. Human remains from former German colonies, a collection now considered disrespectful to film.
Und dann geht's bei 81 weiter.
Starting in 2020, these researchers have been trying to solve the mystery of where they all came from to send them home. The discovery of a German explorer's logbook, written during a journey through the Palaus archipelago, solved one case in the clearest of terms.
We dug up the skull of a man who drowned 2 years ago in Archelon. We had to act with the greatest secrecy because the Palau people would never have allowed us to do it. We spent more than a day in the archives, and we were very lucky to find this logbook. But what we read really shocked us.
The collection contains skulls pillaged in East Africa and the Pacific. It was built at the start of the 20th century when the study of skulls was used to try to create racial hierarchies.
It was about establishing differences between civilizations, and of course in interaction with the colonial policies of the era. It was intended to legitimize them.
Across Germany, museums and cultural institutions are taking a closer look at similar collections, once almost forgotten. After recognizing the massacre of the Herero and Nema peoples in 2004, Germany returned 20 skulls to Namibia in 2011 and more human remains a few years later. These ones were taken from southern Africa by German colonizers between 1904 and 1908. In Berlin's archaeological center, several thousand skulls have been under study for 5 years to try to find out exactly where they came from. It's hard work, says Benhard Habe, but it's starting to bear fruit.
We have about 1,200 skulls from the East Africa collection, and at the start of our project we didn't know that they came from territories now in Rwanda and Tanzania. As of now, we have determined the provenance of all of them except for 7 skulls.
No country collected as many human remains as Germany. But similar collections exist in a good number of European museums and research institutions. Like here at the Royal Belgian Institute of Natural Sciences in Brussels, where these researchers regularly handle human bones. But in 2019, they had to stop work on some of the collection, bones from the colonial era. Since then, this anthropologist has been drafting an ethics report with other museums. It will be made public in the spring. This skull of a decapitated Congolese king, brought back as a trophy by a Belgian general, is still at the Institute.
All the discussions about repatriating human remains to their countries of origin revolve around public collections. And there's a certain legitimacy in asking about the responsibility of the colonial government. But few people are asking questions about private collections, which are often just as big, if not bigger, than the ones in the public domain.
And yet the question was asked in this auction house in the Belgian capital. In December, 3 colonial skulls were put up for sale. But after the local press wrote about it, the director cancelled the auction and offered to try to return them. An exceptional move. In Belgium, it is legal to sell human remains.
I think we all agree these are human remains, so it's troubling. But I've done this job for some 30-40 years, and we've sold Tibetan relics, so skulls, and shrunken heads from Javaro Indians. Nobody said anything then. An Egyptian mummy has the same problem. You have a body inside.
But this anti-colonial activist rejects that argument. He says human remains should never be sold.
We can observe that former colonizers are dying and their descendants are inheriting collections that they don't know what to do with. And the auction houses are some kind of black box through which they can launder an inheritance, one which would normally set off legal proceedings and a trial.
The movement to restore stolen African works of art may be gaining ground in Europe, but the subject of returning human remains isn't getting as much attention. Michael Asilkinga, a researcher on the question, says it's partly because the former colonial powers don't want to face up to their crimes.
We have to accept that getting human remains is the result of an act of profanation, the result of asymmetric wars, and finally, all that leads to the question of reparations, of moral debt, of admitting wrongdoing.
A number of European museums still hold the human remains of tens of thousands of people. In Paris, the Museum of Mankind has a collection of some 18,000 skulls, some thought to come from former colonies. The French government says it wants to enact a law on the restitution of human remains in the second half of 2023.
Israel's restoration after punishment. Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 15 to 17. Why criest thou for thine affliction? Thy sorrow is incurable, for the multitude of thine iniquity. Because thy sins were increased, I have done these things unto thee. Jeremiah 30, verse 16. Therefore all they that devour thee shall be devoured, and all thine adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity. And they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and all that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. Jeremiah chapter 30, verse 17. For I will restore health unto thee, and I will heal thee of thy wounds, saith the Lord Yahweh, because they, the heathen Gentiles, call thee an outcast, saying, This is Zion, whom no man seeketh after.